Typical salary for a cybersecurity person is about 50% above market rate.
Hi everyone, I am Ernest from the Center for Cybersecurity, and I have with me here today Ethan Xiao, our CEO, and I dragged him into this conversation to answer a few questions that we typically get about cybersecurity. So, without further ado, Ethan, why should one consider a career in cybersecurity in Singapore? Enlighten us.
Great question. We get this a lot, actually. Like, why should I enter cybersecurity? Of course, everybody's hearing great things about cybersecurity today, thanks to all the war that's happening in the world, where cybersecurity becomes more and more important every day because a lot of our lives are revolving around technology. Even this video right now, it requires cybersecurity for us to be able to manage it properly, right? So, if you think about medicine, lawyer, all accounting, these are the ideal jobs in Singapore, right? Like everybody goes, you should be in these areas. Whereas, so what happens is that cybersecurity is like the new doctor, lawyer, accountant role, where you're when you're talking about this as a iron rice bowl, right? Why do I use that term? It's because in cybersecurity, as long as you have the technical skills, it's really possible to get a job. It's the same with as a doctor. There's always a need for a doctor. There's always a need. Lawyers, maybe. But that's another long story on its own. But there's always a need in the industry for people who are technically sound. So that allows you to have a very clear sense of, having a longevity in your career and ensure that you always have a job. And the other part about this is then, of course, a pay, right? Typical salary for a cybersecurity person is about 50% above market rate. And, if you talk about Singapore, minimum wage in cybersecurity is about 4 to 4.5 a month in general. Of course, I'm not saying this is not in all places, but this is across board on average, right?
And shameless plug, our students, right? Our students, they from what we know, they do get a starting average salary between like 4.5 to 4.8.
Yes.
It's
around there, right? So that's where our students are currently at. And I mean, the average is also because some people push it up, thankfully, because it's possible to enter at a higher rate, right? But that's the usual starting rate. It's a pretty good price. Let's be honest here. Even a starting doctor, when I was supposed to graduate from medical school, was about 3.8. Yeah, so that's where most of my batchmates started their careers in as a doctor, right? And the third point would be, it's a field where you can always grow in. It's a field that is always going to be here. Because think of it as a defense industry, right? It's something that is here to stay as long as computers are around. So until the day Wi-Fi is no longer below your biological needs in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the day that Wi-Fi is not that level, that's the day that you don't have cybersecurity, right? Which also means that you will be able to find a job, within this industry in the long run, because as long as computers exist, there's a need for cybersecurity.
So if you enter cybersecurity, like for most of our students, actually, they enter cybersecurity as a mid-career switch, right? So they are concerned about what the progression is going to be like for them. How long is it going to take for them to, just grow in their careers? For some students also, how long does it take for them to reach the existing pay that they have? So enlighten us about what does that look like. I enter as a, analyst, right? Just a basic level.
Yes.
Where do I go from there? What does it look like? And more importantly, how much money am I going to make?
So let's start with the basics of the most traditional path, right? So if you enter as an SOC analyst or a junior pen tester, which is the so-called lowest role, pay 4 to 4.5. That's when if you have a restart of career, mid-career areas, right? You restart your career, you start at that price. And then you talk about 3 to 5 years, according to the Skills Future framework, as well as a lot of other different industry knowledge that we get, it has about 6 to 8 after about 3 to 5 years. So depends on where you are, right? So, I mean, this is actually one of the highest jumps you get, right? Some industries, you can stay in it for the next 20 years and you get a pay bump of 2,000 across 20 years. But if over here, you're talking about like a significant jump in just 3 to 5 years. And if you get to managerial positions, it can go up to, 10, 12. In the next few rounds. So when we talk about progression wise, it's definitely a field as long as you improve, as long as you specialize, as long as you keep improving, your progression is there, right? There's a lot of availability. There's a lacking of CISOs in the world right now. So, for example, if you're really working very hard to become a Chief Information Security Officer, also known as a CISO, it's definitely the epitome of where you can be. Of course, that after that, where you want to go is a different story. That's what we're looking at. So for mid-career switch, 4.5.
Okay,
there. That's usually where you start.
Cool. So if I enter, it might take me 1 to 3 years. You're saying to advance
up to 3 years. So just advance to 6
3 years,
right?
Okay.
But of course, some people can shortcut it.
Fair enough. If you come to CFC, but shameless plug. Yeah. No. So certifications, like how difficult is it? What certifications do I need? What does it look like? If I want to consider a career in cybersecurity in Singapore.
Great. One of my favorite parts about this is when we look at career in cybersecurity and you talk about certification, there's 460 certifications currently available on this website called Paul Jeremy, which gives you all the certs that are relevant in cybersecurity, which is crazy. There are certs that are viewed higher than others. All certs are equal and some are more equal than others. So it's always about which certs are relevant for the industry today. Like, for example, there are certain certs that are immediately you'll be picked up as a pen tester, right? You start right away at 6+K, but it requires you to have practical experience. Why? Because the test is actually getting you to actually do a pen test. So you have to do the work. You have to prove that you can do it. And these are all actually documented and actually what we term as in the environment where you are observed. It's having an invigilator watching over you the whole time to ensure that you don't cheat. So
versus MCQ, right? Like there are some certifications which we won't name here, but some of them just MCQ based, and people find that, I have this cert and I go into, I apply and the person's like, oh, sorry. So that actually happens, right?
It happens very often. In fact, we have people coming to us because they're like, I have this cert, and even some of the very high level certs, and they're like, but I don't even feel confident doing the work because I don't even know what I'm doing. And that's why they're actually approaching us, right? Because at the end of the day, cybersecurity cares most about the one word. It's called skill. I mean, the other word is called trust because it's a defense industry. So it requires you to understand that at the end of the day, you need to have the technical skills. So if it's an MCQ-based test, right? Yes, it's great to open the door, but whether you get hired and whether you have longevity in the career is a different story. Whereas the certs that are all about practical work, whether you can actually do the work, is where the cert is really at.
Okay, that makes sense. So just to summarize, right? Why I should or anyone should enter a cybersecurity career in Singapore? 3 reasons. One, you said it's Iron Rice Bowl, it's a steady career. The second reason is the pay is decent at the start, and it only gets a lot more decent as you upskill, as you learn, as you progress in the career.
You probably only lose to finance people.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to go into finance, sorry, wrong channel, wrong place. But if you want to get into a lucrative, stable career, and the last point where there is career progression, right? Fairly quick career progression, then you should consider cybersecurity in Singapore. But Ethan, I'm going to throw you a curveball question. I'm going to ask you this. Why shouldn't you go into cybersecurity? Who shouldn't consider this as a career and be as straightforward and honest as possible?
Okay, there are 3 main reasons, 3 main things, right? Like the rule of threes, very basic, very, very simple, is if you don't like staring at screens.
Fair enough.
But then you might not be watching this video if you don't like staring at screens. But if you don't feel like staring at screens all day long, your computer screens, right? You feel like the blue light affects you. You don't want to stare at screens all day long. You probably have difficulty working in most companies if so. But there are people who cannot stand staring at screens. They like meeting people. They like going out there meeting people. They don't want to answer too many emails. Then this career is definitely not for you because you're dealing with computers day in, day out. There's screens all around you, right? So that is definitely one thing. Number 2, you don't like staring at the terminal or the command prompt, or you don't like typing too much. Like that kind of world, right? Where you're typing in a very, very technical language, right? So we do bash scripting. We even in our training, we do a lot of bash, a lot of command prompt, a lot of PowerShell, some basic Python. Why? Because those are important for you to automate things. In cybersecurity, right? If you have to do everything manually, trust me, you don't want to do the work. So a large part of the work is even knowing your way around the systems, navigating a Linux system to be able to utilize it properly. So if you don't like typing and staring at the screen and trying to figure out which word goes where and whether you're in the right syntax, it's not really for you, right? So when we run a workshop where people get to experience what's it like to be a cybersecurity person for a day, we had people literally rage quit on us after about half an hour through the assessment and go like, sorry, this is really not for me.
But it's good, right? At least they know that, it's not for them. And Ethan is referring to our cybersecurity experiential workshop, CEW, where we have people come down for 6 hours where they try out what cybersecurity is like. And it's okay, some of them find that, hey, this is not for me, which is fine, because at least you don't spend so much time and money figuring out whether it's for you. Come down for one day. But anyway, sorry, carry on. The last point.
And actually, talking about that, right? So one of the major reasons why this is very important is because how do you know that you're that person who should enjoy cybersecurity?
Right.
So this is one of the best ways. You can imagine all you want. You can try out all the peripheral stuff, but until you sit down and actually experience what's it like, it's a different story, right? So that's why we do that experiential workshop. The last but not least is you don't like problem solving. You like to be told what to do. So what this means is that if you are in a career where you want a career where you just follow procedures, clock in, clock out, you don't need to think, you don't need to learn, you don't need to develop your skills, then this is definitely not for you. Cybersecurity is a very exciting, always growing field. One of the major things is like the evolution of even what we term as SOC tier 1, SOC tier 1, right? Where your basic level of people have to evolve now just to even keep up to date, right? You need to start doing automations yourself. You need to detect what is actually a real alert and what is not a real alert. You need to know how to automate all these parts.
Right.
In the past, you don't need this, right? So the last 20 years, these were not very important. So as part of the industry, you need to keep evolving and keep developing. As long as you do that, you will have an iron rice bowl. If you don't do that, it's very easy for you to drop out. So that's where, like, I would say, like, if you're not into problem solving, you're not into learning, you just want to coast. Cybersecurity is definitely not for you.
Cool. Yeah, that was very insightful. Thanks for taking the time to run through all these questions. And wherever you're watching from, we hope that was sufficient information. We hope that we gave you some insights as to both why you should consider and even why you shouldn't consider a career in cybersecurity. And there are a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at our website, www.centerforcybersecurity.com. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Even jump on a call with us. So just let us know. And awesome. Thanks, Ethan. I'll see you soon.
Yep. See you soon.